We need to come out of this obsession of STEM education. For example, this obsession with computer science. You can learn it on your own on YouTube. Honestly, there's always a conversation and a debate that humanities or technical education, and there is no debate on that. Of course, humanities. The technical education, be it design, be it computer science, physics, that all STEM education, that's very important. But you need to create that curiosity and desire in a student's heart to learn about that for the greater community. And you cannot do it without humanities. So figure out your humanities education and then go on with STEM education. How can a computer scientist add more value to the code which the Claude has already built, no matter in what company he or she is working in? And that is where humanities come in, right? Because humanities give you the ability to think critically.
I know this is not really a one-sentence solution, but just for the sake of argument, one thing you want to change or one change you want to see in education.
We need to ensure that we have a curriculum which is holistic, right? With artificial intelligence coming in, and we can talk more about artificial intelligence. We know that a lot of skills are very easy to learn on your computer also, right? And I don't think that we have had a greater need for a more holistic curriculum than in today's day and age, where we can have the high-level critical thinking discussions. And for that, we tend to focus only on STEM education, but we need to have, the creative curiosity of the students to be very meaningfully addressed and engaged. I think the most important, that could be the crux of the entire thing in the education sector. You need to help curate an ability in a student where they can actually learn and relearn. So to fix education, we need to redefine our greater objective and purpose of education, which is learning and learning holistically, not just, getting a job, because you will get a job.
Let's talk a little bit about Think Humanly and the book we designed together, The Humanly Guide to AI.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we can talk a little bit about that, how that idea came about, how we developed it, what the thought process behind that was.
Yeah. What the first thing we did was we actually, designed some program. We designed the theory of change, what we call in our own language, like technical language, right? The theory of change is very simple. You identified inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes. That if you're designing a book, what will be the output of it and what will be the outcome of it? The idea and the pedagogical approach you were working with was activity-based learning, right? Where your role comes in, right? Because we thought that we want to do something which actually helps both the student and the teacher in their daily classroom activity. And for that, something which is visually appealing and an activity-based learning approach, which is now being advocated by the CRC curriculum, by WHO, by the child rights organization, by UNICEF. So that is the approach we try to engulf in. Now, for Think Humanly is more of an international organization which we are trying to build. The idea remains the same. But our focus is towards, helping the students navigate artificial intelligence, because we know that artificial intelligence is very much our reality, right? And the students in general are engaging with artificial intelligence for multiple purposes. So they're using it for reading and writing. That's what the statistics show. To summarize readings, to write. They're using it to get answers of their problems, which they're doing at schools. But they're also using it to do, to find some different information which they might need in the daily activities. When we sat down with you, we had to do the design thinking from very scratch, right? Because the idea is not to discourage students to use AI, because that's not what we're here for. We wanted to design a book which actually helps students to help them navigate artificial intelligence. And for that, we need to design, we had to design very carefully curated activities which they could do in a logical and pedagogical manner. By that, what I mean is that we needed every activity had to have a purpose and it had to build on to something. At the end of working through that book, and through the activities and through the visuals which we are communicating, we are able to help the students learn what is the safest way of using artificial intelligence, which means, so for example, you did a lot of brainstorming in designing an activity on the spread of the book. We had different elements in a room, and what we said that why don't you think where in this room is AI, right? Now, why were we doing that? So that the student knows and student have conscious ability to recognize and identify that where in the room is the AI being incorporated, right? But then we looked at developing, and I think that was the most important one, developing overall the critical thinking ability to use artificial intelligence, so that they know that, for example, what is the difference between the real intelligence and artificial intelligence. And I think that is where you did an excellent job in identifying, in helping the students think about themselves before, so that, because we had an activity which starts off by asking them, what is your own intelligence, right? And with those activities, we continue to build upon something. And I think we were able to, through different activities, through a very structured methodological approach of design-based activities, we were able to help them come to a conclusion that data can have biases. Artificial intelligence can have biases. While it can be very useful in giving you information very quickly, we need to identify how can we interpret and critically think about that data.
One more thing I just want to talk about is that while we were designing the book, I think we had it was a very interesting challenge, because us as a design studio, we are very skeptical and very critical of AI being used, and especially in the arts and design world. So I think it was an interesting challenge that we had a lot of back and forth, a lot of pushback even at times where like, we can't do this. This is not, we have to approach it differently. So definitely an interesting challenge, but I think we got to a pretty good, interesting space where we are being critical of AI, but at the same time accepting that, okay, what are the actual useful ways in which we can use it without it destroying our cognitive ability, destroying our ability to reason, destroying our abilities to be creative.
If I may, just to add, I think I just wanted to talk a bit more about the creative process, right? Because when we are saying, of course, we're talking about a lot of abstract themes, artificial intelligence, safety, navigating, so on and so forth. But when we actually sit down to design the book, the first challenge we have is that we need to find people who actually understand the society's different elements and who understand what are the needs of the student. So the best thing which, the expertise your organization provide, and I think that is the advantage we had, is because you are not just a designer, or your company helps us not to just design something which, we can give you directions for, right? For example, if I say, Shabir, we want to design a book, you're just not designing a book according to the instructions which we give. There's a lot of critical thinking and creativity involved from your side. And I think that is why this particular product is so interesting, because this is not just, my vision or Ram and Ash's vision of think humanly. It was, your vision also coming in, probably because you had a lot of social experience of working with a diverse range of stakeholders that really helped us design something which was very creative.
Yeah, that was a really, I think, a good explanation of just generally how we structured the book, how we worked on it. Couple of things I want to touch on.
Yeah.
So we started working from the very beginning of Think Humanly. We worked on the name, we worked on the logo, all the way down to the book and all of that. So I wanted to talk about your company or your institution is focused around ethical and safe consumption of AI, but it's actually called Think Humanly. So I want to ask you, for you, what is humanly? What does it mean to think humanly?
Yeah, I think it is about so the idea behind was how we are losing our conscious mind, our cognitive abilities to the system which is being controlled by the very few people, right? And Think Humanly, at the end of the day, for us, even the brand and the logo, when we were doing a lot of thinking with you and brainstorming, for us it was about getting your agency back to something which is your very own, and which is, your ability to think. And when we say that we want to think humanly, that also means that you need to cater to your, empathetic side of yours, right? Your emotions. And I think, there's a very clear philosophical demarcation which is being blurred in today's world, where you say that, oh, there is a rational mind and there is an emotional side of you. However, what we say when we say think humanly, no, these are not two different things. Your empathy and your consciousness, your moral consciousness, should be able to guide your rational mind, and that